I tell people I want to live to 170, but I want to be wiping my own.
I look at the body as a 10-gallon fish tank. With a 10-gallon fish tank, you have to be precise with the measurements and the chemicals that you use, because a little bit of too much of that, a little bit too little of that, you completely throw off the ecosystem. Exercise sparks massive metabolic changes that prime the body for resilience, focus, and longevity. But recovery is when the benefits are actually realized. The fastest cars that race come with brakes, because they have to slow down before they go into the turns. And when we're young, we are that Ferrari, we are that F1 car, and we want to go that speed.
As people skip steps, it's really important to know where you are and know which practices are suitable and appropriate for where you are now so that you can completely solidify where you are. Welcome to the Full Stack Podcast. I'm Mike Bledsoe. The world is changing faster than ever. The systems are collapsing, the rules are being rewritten, and certainty is disappearing. The question isn't how do we survive it? It's who do we become through it? This is your field guide for living the full stack life. Integrated, adaptive, and sovereign by design. Join the movement and gain free access to the full stack school community at bledsoe.life. This isn't the end of an era. It's the rise of a new kind of individual. You're not alone. You're early. Stay stacked. If this episode resonates, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
Oh, Mike, man, what are you reading right now?
I am reading Illusions by Richard Bach.
Really? Okay. Explain more. Say more. What is it about? Why are you reading it?
I've read Illusions years ago, and then what got me to read that book is I read Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which is a short novel. So Richard Bach is an author who likes to do short novels that are highly insightful, and so the books, a lot of the books that have had the biggest impact on me are fictional with philosophy embedded as the foundation of it. So the author is getting across an idea by telling a story.
Yeah.
When I look back over history of my life, those have made some of the biggest impacts. Also, a lot of nonfiction has too. But with where I'm at in my life right now, I'm really anytime I start reading nonfiction, I have I start picking it apart. And like, yeah, it's not really that way. It depends on what point of development you're in. And there's not very many nonfiction books that are hitting the point in the development I'm in right now, like around certain topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that novels take me a long way because I can use my own interpretation a lot more cleanly than if someone's just giving me straight information.
I had a feeling we were going to have drastically different answers and read drastically different books, because I'm on the opposite spectrum where I'm reading Harvard Business Reviews on sales for sales structure for
Yeah.
large organizations. And I'm sitting here like, okay, this is how you integrate marketing and sales in one clear funnel and pipeline. But there's truth to what you said. And I've had an interview with someone on my podcast about that, and he was a decamillionaire, made all the money, and he had a library of books behind him. And so naturally I said, what do you read? What do you like to read? And his insight was exactly what you said. He said he gets so much more from fictional books than non-fictional books, because fictional authors are typically philosophers, to your point, who are expressing an idea through story, while nonfiction is more tangible, concrete ideas, which is probably why I gravitate to them, because I'm very structured. I like seeing it and applying it. Um, but between that conversation and this one, you've challenged me, man. I need to expand my reading horizons a little bit and and jump into some fiction.
I've read a lot of basically personal development and business books that are nonfiction,
Yeah.
and they were really really helpful. And I find that during the time in my life where I was reading a lot of that, I was trying to solve a problem. I was really dissatisfied with an area of my life, or I was really dissatisfied with the way my business was going, or there's a problem to be solved and I need to read the book to solve the problem. Like read a book on how to hire when I was hiring, sales when wanting to improve sales and all that kind of stuff. And most of that is nonfiction. And over the years, I personally just hit a point where I feel like I'm rereading the same thing over and over again. And then when I read the fiction book, then I'm able to get a deepening on something that I already know in a much
Yeah.
easier way. And there's a couple guys that I follow. One's Dan Coe, another one is Nabal Ravikant, and both of them are huge proponents on reading. You should be reading at least an hour a day, and then the question is, well, what the hell am I supposed to be reading?
Hmm.
And the answer is whatever you enjoy reading. And you figure out what you're going to enjoy reading by reading. You have to read a bunch of different things to find out what it is that you enjoy at the time. And so I definitely find myself at times going, I need to read this thing on this to solve this problem. And then I've gotten really good at just reading a sample on, because I have a Kindle. I read the sample and I go, nope, not for me. So
Yeah.
most books that have a good title or really good reviews, I start reading it and I go, no, I already know most of this. It feels like a waste of time. And so I just find myself reading more novels.
Yeah. And to your point, I've gotten to that level of self-help books, business books. They're same concept, just approached a different way, right? If you're reading about soccer, you could read 5 different soccer books. They are all talking about kicking a soccer ball. Might be a different technique, but if you already found how you kick a soccer ball, those books are useless to you. Which is why I could be transparent and say, my reading slowed down a little bit because some of the books were repetitive. If you've read Atomic Habits, you've read The Power of Habits. Like it's one and the same. So I think the fiction piece is where you get to more have that expansion of thoughts and ideas. Have you ever read Atlas Shrugged?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My first podcast that launched me into the digital world was called Barbell Shrugged, and it was a it was an ode to Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
And speaking of books that changed my life, Ayn Rand, the woman who wrote Atlas Shrugged, she also wrote The Fountainhead, and I read The Fountainhead before I even knew Atlas Shrugged exists. I picked it up in a library when I was in the Navy. We had a small library, and I just picked it up because I was looking for something to read. And I go, oh, this seems interesting. I was just starting to read a bunch of different books, and that one I read twice on that deployment, and that gave me the confidence to leave the Navy. Actually, I
Nice.
that book highlighted it, and that I'm meant for something more. It was a book that really celebrating the individual and the individual expression, and
Nice.
so I, that novel really, I mean, I can still look back at that novel and go, it still has lessons for me in there.
Kind of like I read, I mean, The Alchemist actually is one of my favorite books, and it's actually the fiction book that I really enjoyed reading. And every time I read it, I typically read it on my birthday. I get something different from it, and I resonate with a different part of the story. And it's just like, you can't walk in the same river twice because both the man and the river have changed. It's exactly the experience of the book that I get from that as well. And speaking of reading,
You're reading a Harvard Business Review? Is that like
it's
the
actually,
one thing you're reading right now?
well, I have it right here. It's a collection of essays on sales. Um, I'm also reading another book. My dad has a library of books, and he started to give them to me. And some are old. There's one on Milton Friedman wrote a book. I'm reading one of his books, and
Love
I
Milton
love
Friedman.
reading the old writing because people they were more intentional with their words. I mean, back in the day, if you were writing a book, it wasn't like today where you could just transcribe it or you could just throw it into Chat GPT, especially nowadays. Like if you were writing a book, that was a task, and you had something to say.
Yeah, well, most books are published now as marketing tools.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. There's something about it that needing to be intentional. One of my favorite authors on business is Peter Drucker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with him. If you like Milton Friedman, Peter Drucker is more of like the understanding more of the microeconomics, whereas Milton Friedman is more of a macroeconomics guy.
Yeah.
But I love them both.
And it's fascinating to jump into that mindset. And I find as I read the old books, nothing new under the sun. you know,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
certain truths that are just timeless or whatnot. Speaking of something that's not timeless, is we're in an ever changing world. A lot of research topics coming up, research studies that have come out. So wanted to break down some of them and just have a good conversation on what's out there when it comes to applied sciences and psychology, and also things that could help folks when it comes to how they approach their lives and their business. And I wanted to start with MDPI Applied Sciences had the study in 2025 recently came out about chemically induced reprogramming to reverse cellular aging. This is kind of fascinating. Scientists tested chemical compounds that reversed aging markers in human cells without full genetic reprogramming. So we're not talking about stem cells. We're literally talking about rolling back the clock on these cells. The key findings showed that they slowed down biological aging in cells while keeping them functional, longevity without breaking the cell itself. I feel like the study of aging, longevity, living forever, this has been an area of science that has become more and more mainstream. There's always been an aspect of it, say the fountain of youth, but this actually shows real promise, Mike, into turning back the clocks of cells and increasing longevity. What are your initial thoughts when you see that and hear that?
Yeah, I mean, I like to play in the longevity market. It's a lot of fun. It's really fascinating. I'm 43. I'll be 44 next month. My birthday's next month, and the age of feels real. It's like my mortality is present, and uh, do I want to live forever? No. Do I want to live a long time? Yes. Do I want to live a long time with vital capacity? Yes. And so, you know, I tell people I want to live to 170, but I want to be wiping my own until I'm like right till the end. Like
Yeah.
having someone take care of me doesn't sound like fun. Um, and I was talking to one of my buddies last week. He's a qigong master, and he was talking about one of the you have all these different traditions, and the qigong tradition is really about increasing the vitality of the body. So this is an ancient practice of longevity is nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of it, he was telling me, is if we can live long enough, we can live long enough to pass down the wisdom that we've gained. And so it's not just for the individual. It's like, okay, if we can live longer, I can keep giving good advice. If you can talk to somebody who's 100 years old and is still with it, they're still cognitively sharp. Whoa, there's a lot that they could share there. And so I think that for for the passing down of wisdom and for the enjoyment of life for the longest period of time possible, it's a worthwhile endeavor. I know a lot of people, there's like mixed. Sometimes people hear about this type of stuff and they're like, you wouldn't want to live forever, or you're trying to like, you know, bypass nature or whatever. I mean, I think those are the same people who are afraid of AI and technology,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think it's really really cool. I play around in the peptide space. There's a couple companies I consult in the peptide space, which is it's all about rejuvenating the body and enhancing it and making sure that we can stay as fully operational as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah. And I agree. It's not about how long we live, it's about how we live, right? And it's not just about lifespan, health span. I don't want to be 85, kind of shaken and have to get taken in and out of bed. I want to be 85 and still getting after it. I want to be in my old age and be cognitively there. I've even I'm adopting some sports that I like. I was never a golfer, but I want to golf now because I want to do something where I could still beat the youngins. Right? Like I can't quite get it on the football field like I used to. Volleyball starting to slip. So I mean, pickleball might be an opportunity for me to wax
Pickleball's
that
good.
ass.
Yeah, there's some older folks out there whooping ass on pickleball,
Yeah,
and at the same time, I like volleyball a lot.
yeah.
I still want to do the sports where it's required that I move quickly with a lot of power,
Mm-hmm.
because when people get older, the two things they stop doing is jumping and running as fast as they possibly can,
Oh yeah.
and sprinting. And so I actually think that jumping and running as fast as you can are two things that help keep your body younger. That
Mm.
doesn't require a bunch of uh, chemistry.
Yeah, yeah, we don't need these chemical compounds. They'll be nice. And here's the thing: by the time they come out and they're available to the public, you and I will be a lot older. So we need to take care of the bodies now, so we can stick around long enough for these compounds and these aids to help. Like you mentioned, peptides or even supplementation. A lot of folks lean in on this as religion or as I need this, right? And I don't knock Ozempic because I know some folks who've used Ozempic, they've gotten off Ozempic, they've adopted better habits, and they've kept the weight off. So when you use it as a head start or maybe just a recalibration for a new baseline, that's good, right? You're using it effectively, but if you're using it to offset your bad habits, you're not doing yourself any favors, and it's gonna catch up with you at some point in some time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not. I mean, that study is really cool. I think we're gonna keep seeing more and more of these studies coming out because of AI. The research is moving a lot faster than it used to. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you're citing if I don't remember the title of the study I was listening to on another podcast where they were talking about this, and basically like this would have taken 100 years to figure out without AI. Now that we have AI, they can start sequencing these things in a way that are much more meaningful and target genes in a way that would have taken 100 years or 1,000 years via the means we had even 5 years ago. So things are moving so fast, we have no idea what's going to come of it. But yeah,
Yeah,
to your point, it's take as good a care of your body now as possible, because the better you take care of it now, the easier it is to implement these things. And in the peptide space, one of the things that's interesting is for a lot of these peptides that have like these quote unquote magical properties, they actually may work against you if you're not taking care of your health in other ways. If you're not getting enough sleep, if you're eating like total, if if you're if you're under constant stress and then you're taking these, they may actually do more harm than good. But if you've got all your ducks in a row and then you implement some of these peptide strategies, now you're actually in the slowing down or reversing aging game. And so um, I remember I'm pretty sure my mother-in-law doesn't watch this show, but uh, she does Google me sometimes. But she was asking about Ozempic, and uh, I was like, I I think that it could be helpful, and however, what I'd like to see is exercise 3 days a week, starting your day off drinking water, and eat uh, healthy in this way. If you can do that for 90 days, then do the Ozempic, right?
yeah,
Because Ozempic can be a problem if you just try to carry on your daily life with, you know, so it has changed people's lives that they didn't try to change anything else, but they automatically started changing things. So it's not necessarily bad, but like if you, I tell people that you got to earn your way there. Give yourself 90 days of trying to do whatever it is that you're doing, and then that way you form all these really positive habits, and then you layer in the peptides on top, and then boom,
yeah,
now you've already got some momentum, and it's going to keep carrying you there. It's kind of like 15-year-olds doing steroids. It's like, dude, you're already on steroids.
yeah, yeah. Mother Nature's provided you with what you need.
But it also reminds me of Dave Asprey talked about this at one point, like one of the most popular biohackers, that he doesn't use modafinil anymore, which is a pharmaceutical drug that increases wakefulness, and I've used it before. I don't use it anymore, but it allows you to really focus. No matter what your diet is, no matter what, if you're sleep deprived, you take that pill, you're going to be focused, and you're going to get stuff done. And he said that that was the thing he needed to kickstart into a healthy habit. I've also
Mm,
seen a lot of people like in the military veteran community where they tried mindfulness and meditation, all this stuff, and it really wasn't working for them. And then they ate, a good amount of mushrooms one day, and then that kick started them into something where they were able to start implementing more healthy things. So I don't think these things are good or bad, but it's something that sometimes it might be a kickstart. Maybe Ozempic is something that kickstarts somebody into a healthy lifestyle.
yeah.
Um, And so it's really hard to say. Nothing's good or bad. It's just how we're using it.
Yeah, and it's resisting the urge for trying to find the shortcut or the free lunch. No such thing as a free lunch. So whether it is the peptides or even this new study, if they go through clinical trials and they release it tomorrow, congratulations, you're going to reverse the age of your cells. Great, but to what end, and what are you sacrificing, and what were your younger cells healthier than they are now? Right? That's another
Yeah.
question to ask. But doing the work now and taking care of yourself is important. And when you mention the peptides and these chemical compounds, I look at the body as a 10-gallon fish tank. And what I mean by that is growing up, I took care of fish. And my friend had this huge fish tank, like 200 gallons, and he would just dump the chemicals in there. Like he wouldn't measure it, he would dump it because there's so much water that it's diluting anything that you're putting in. So you didn't have to be precise. But with a 10-gallon fish tank, like the pH had to be on point. I remember I put some algae killer in there, and then two of my fish turned up dead because I put a little bit too much. So with
Yeah.
a 10-gallon fish tank, you have to be precise with the measurements and the chemicals that you use, because a little bit of too much of that, a little bit too little of that, you completely throw off the ecosystem, you throw off the pH balance, and that could harm the living creatures within it. So looking at our bodies like that, we could be more intentional, apply more discernment with what we put in it and how we just change things up and down, because the body is an extremely resilient thing, but at the same time it's also a very delicate and balanced ecosystem that we need to take care of. Speaking of health and taking care of ourselves, this goes into this next study, which is very effective into the benefits that we get now from these healthy habits. So people can take this study and apply it to their day to day right away. This is Frontiers in Physiology, late 2024. Neurovisceral integration and stress regulation in entrepreneurs. Now, the researchers looked at how an entrepreneur's nervous system, especially their heart rate variability, affects decision making under stress. The key findings here, they found that entrepreneurs with better heart rate variabilities handle stress, risk, and performance more effectively than those with poor HRV, heart rate variability. The poor HRV equaled reactivity, worse decisions, and so on and so forth. So, something we could take to heart right now when we talk about better habits and helping ourselves, not just for longevity, because HRV is a metric for longevity, but it's taking care of our bodies now so we could be more effective in our business and the decision makings day in and day out.
Yeah. HRV is a measure of how recovered your nervous system is. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, we've known this in athletics we've been using that, back when I was coaching athletes 10 years ago. We started looking at HRV as a thing. And before HRV, we were measuring nervous system recovery by, there's a couple different tests you could do. You walk into the gym before you warm up and you see how high you can jump. So if you can't jump as high today as you did yesterday, that means that your nervous system hasn't fully recovered, which means that you should do a lighter workout. You're not primed for performance. There's also a tap test. How quickly could you tap something twice? And so we had
Mm-hmm.
little devices where you could test the nervous system. It was like, boom, boom. Okay, you were like a tenth of a second slower today or faster today. Like, oh, you're going faster. We can push harder today. And then HRV came along and Whoop Strap came along and we started measuring HRV. And uh, the thing about that and what we know in the world of psychology is that when the nervous system is stressed, when it hasn't recovered, so stress is the opposite of recovery. When it's stressed, it 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 gets small, it contracts in a way. And so your nervous system is tied into your brain. It's tied into how you think. It's tied into how you breathe. And if you're stressed and your breathing is shallow, then that dumps cortisol into the system, which tells your body to hang on to fat and it's considered a stress hormone. So you end up in this loop of stress and you get what's called tunnel vision. So your ability to see the field at large goes way down and that's why you're not able to make good decisions, is because the amount of variables that you can consider go down. And so you can only consider fewer variables. And the other thing is a stressed nervous system wants to repeat patterns from the past. it's hard to take in new information. And so somebody who's in a chronically stressed state will repeat the patterns over and over and over again. They'll date the same type of woman over and over again. They'll make the same mistake in business over and over again. They'll make or something that's similar to that. So they actually, when the human biology and biology at large, this is all animals, when put into a when there's a perceived threat, because that's what's happening. There's a perceived threat, then we revert back to the thing that worked in the past, that allowed us to survive. But survival and thriving don't go hand in hand. You have to get out of survival mode to create something new and different. And if you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching this show, then you're likely somebody who wants their life to be new and different. I want my life to be new and different. And so that requires me to, one of the things I do monitor every day is my HRV, what's going on with it. And I can tell that my performance in the gym is down if my HRV is low. I can tell that I can't think as clearly. My verbal fluency, my ability to have a conversation goes down, and being able to create anything new is just not as possible.
Where does your HRV sit at, or what do you aim for? What's a good metric to go for?
When I'm at my best, I'm usually in the 80s or 90s.
Mhm.
And, when I was at Burning Man, it was in the 40s. And
Understood.
yeah, and so like right now, I'm in like mid 60s.
Mhm.
And so the ways I improve my HRV, one is putting on blue light blocking glasses 3 hours before I go to bed, helps me wind down. Uh, Breath work helps me do that. Not breath work that amps me up, but breath work that helps calm me down. Stretching and doing fascial work help keep the HRV. And then we talked about this on a previous show, is like twice a week doing some type of long, slow distance work. So
Mhm.
riding a bike for half an hour to an hour, going for a jog for 45 minutes. If I do that a couple days a week, then my HRV starts climbing up. If I stay up late to watch a movie, HRV takes a tank, starts to tank.
Mhm.
If I, go out on Saturday night and have a couple drinks, HRV takes. Um, and HRV is a really cool thing to watch because you can start seeing what's improving it and what's making it worse. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's still a complete mystery. Sometimes I'm like, I woke up, I feel pretty good. HRV is showing low, but yesterday I didn't do anything that was drastically different. So sometimes we're unaware of what's causing it, but
Mhm.
the more we track it, the greater our awareness becomes.
Yeah, that tracking piece is so huge because before I adopted the Whoop, um, I everybody's like, "Hey, Ted, how you doing?" And I'm like, no stress, no mess. I'm good. I'm good. And there are a lot of people who walk around who don't think they're stressed, who are chronically stressed. And I didn't know until I wrapped this thing on that I'm like, dang, I'm stressed all the time.
It's your
I'm thinking
normal.
I'm good, but exactly because my normal was an elevated heart rate because I'm normally, man, I was in the 30s, 40s heart rate variability, and I'm like, dang, where did that come from? I thought I was cool headed, calm, collected, but I'm internalizing a lot of that. So I get to about 60s, 60 to 70s. My high right now. I really want to get that to 90 to 100. That's the goal. But it starts with tracking, and when you track what gets measured gets managed. And the moment you see what the problem is, then you can start taking the habits. I love the journal part of the Whoop because it tracks, okay, what'd you do today? What'd you do today? And it will start picking up on the trends. And to your point, hey, man, you have a couple alcoholic drinks, HRV tanks. Hey, you didn't get much sleep, HRV tanks. So the practice of breath work has been great. I have a breath work app that I use, the workouts, adopted running, rowing. That's been helpful. And listening to my body. I can be hard headed at times, and I'm a big proponent of you set the schedule, stick to the plan. But now, if I wake up and I see my HRVs down, I don't want to overextend myself. I might be looking to do cleans and squats and jump rope in the gym. I might just chill and do a long walk or a bike ride or something easier on my body and listen to my body. And I'll give that compromise because I don't see it as losing the gain. I actually see it as the recovery aspect of things, letting my body get back to where it needs to be so I could operate at an effective level. Because if I'm always redlining, there's diminishing returns there. And as you mentioned before, the release of cortisol in the body, we're always in this fight or flight mode. We can't make proper decisions. I start fighting with my wife and I don't know why I'm irritable and on edge, where it's like chill, calm down, get your heart rate down, do some breath work, and just take better care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and our bodies respond to stress, right? We adapt because of stress. But there's like there's if there's not any stress in the system, there's nothing to adapt to. And then you have distress, which is when you've gone so far outside of the window of tolerance that your system is going to adapt in a poor way. You have a maladaptation. And so what we're
Mm-hmm.
looking for is called eustress. So eustress is when you introduce just enough stress to cause an adaptation, but not so much stress that you run into de-stress and get a maladaptation. So uh, that's that's something that I've become more aware of. I remember when I was in school, got my degree in exercise and sports science, and there was an old weightlifting coach, and he would talk about the minimum effective dose, and I intellectually understood what he was saying, but I could not apply it because my drive was really high, and my fear of not being a good enough was also really high. And so I would do really extreme things to ensure success. And the reality of it was it led to injuries and poor relationships and making bad decisions because I was putting myself in a chronically stressed state all the time. And so as I've gotten older, it's like, oh yeah, I in order for me to adapt, I only need to introduce 10% more stress than what I'm experiencing right now, and my body's going to adapt. And I also accumulated so many injuries over the years, and there's like injuries in business too, like trying to go too big too fast, and then like you almost get scared to do that type of thing again because you had such a poor result. And so there's injuries in relationships, injuries in business, injuries in your health. But I remember so many times getting injured and not being able to squat for a month.
Oh man.
And I go, wow, if I had been a little less aggressive with trying to get as strong as possible, as fast as possible, I would actually have been stronger because had I squatted less weight, but I kept squatting all month long, I would have had a bigger squat. I would have been stronger. But our ability to see that over time is just not as great when we're young because our perception of time hasn't matured. But as our perception of time matures and we get a more realistic view of what's actually happening, then I go, oh, it's okay to go slow here. Actually, going slow is actually going to cause me to go fast. I'm going to get there a lot quicker by going slower.
I always use the analogy with F1 cars. The fastest cars that race come with brakes because they have to slow down before they go into the turns. And when we're young, we are that Ferrari. We are that F1 car. We see the engine and we know we can go 150 to 200 miles an hour, and we want to go that speed. But if you never hit the brakes, you're gonna drive headfirst into the wall, and you're out of the race for an extended period of time. Where, to your point, if you apply the brakes strategically, you can take on life's turns. And when you have that straightaway, have at it. Go, air
Yeah,
that bad boy
yeah.
out. But we need to address the curves. And it took me a long time to learn that as well. I'm still learning that myself because, and I'm sure you probably heard this in your time in the Navy and in the military. They say slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Hmm.
You,
Yeah,
you
I
got to
just
slow
thought that
down.
applied to shooting. Anytime you were in shooting school, any type of school where we're shooting, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. You're like, uh huh. And then a couple decades later, I go, oh, that applies to everything.
Yeah,
And
wait a minute. And you mentioned wisdom beforehand. My dad, he turns 85 years old this year. So he's seen some things and he can still
yeah,
rattle off my college bank account number. So his mind's still
oh
there.
shit,
And the
oh
last
wow.
time we hung out, I asked him, I was like, Dad, what advice do you have for me? And he said two words. He said, slow down. That's it. That's it. slow down. So that's the words of a wise older man from me to you guys. But
Yeah.
this goes perfectly into our third study. The source is Nature Communications, Metabolic Signatures of Exercise and Recovery in Humans. Researchers tracked thousands of metabolites, tiny markers in the blood before and after exercise to map how the body recovers. Now, the key findings here says that exercise sparks massive metabolic changes that prime the body for resilience, focus, and longevity. But recovery is when the benefits are actually realized. So when my dad says slow down, he's on to something here, Mike, because we're so used to going fast. But as we were just talking about, that can have some diminishing returns if we never let the stress actually do the work.
There was a point in my coaching career where I was coaching some weightlifters, and I started putting them in float tanks, and not all of them loved the float tank, but some of them did. And I put them in the float tank because I can put them in a as close to zero gravity environment, take all the stress off of the body, and also there's a lot of salt and magnesium in there, which is great for recovery. But yeah, started doing that, and I noticed as the more I was coaching these athletes who were really had a history of training a lot, all I had to do was give them good recovery tools, and the training program didn't matter as much as the recovery tools. Those were the things that made. So I could take somebody who had been competing and training really hard for 5 years, and if you've been training a sport for 5 years, the amount of progress, like making a 1% improvement in your sport, is tremendous. And so I would just do it by implementing better recovery strategies. And this was before, you know, um, most coaches out there are like, eat this and get enough sleep. And I was like, okay, we're gonna do this breathing routine. We're gonna get in the float tank on Sundays. We're gonna do, I want you to just go do yoga, and yoga was and go do a yin yoga, one that's like really chill, not like a Bikram hot yoga. And if you would have told me 15 years ago that I would be telling athletes they should do yoga, I would give you a list of reasons why you should not do yoga. And now I go, oh, it has nothing to do with this, and this. It has everything to do with down regulating the body so that it can recover from the training we've been putting it through. And the same with business as well. It's there's the amount of stress that we may encounter with uh, you know in business. Our job is to solve problems, and sometimes there's problems inside of the business, sometimes there's problems that we're solving for our clients and customers. And so those are always introducing stress. And so if you can, this is why, like, people will go on vacation, they come back and they're just like spot on in their business in so many ways, is because it might have been the first time they've actually taken a real break in a long time.
And it's what you use your vacations for. Because you ever go to, I call those trips, not vacations, where you need a vacation from the trip that you take because
Mm.
you indulge so much, and you go from one stressor to another, right? You go from the stress on the mind to the stress on the body, and I'm talking about the all inclusive experiences. And I put my hand up, guilty, right? Keep bringing the drinks; they're already paid for. Give me all the food. I'm getting two entrees at dinner
Hmm.
because the steak and the lobster looks good. So you put more stress on the body while you relieve the stress on the mind, but you still come back and you're like, man, why am I so exhausted? It's because you never really rested. You never really recovered. You just escaped rather than actually recover.
Yeah, and there's some more definition we can add to this conversation too. So there's rest, and then there's rejuvenation.
Mm.
And so rest by itself is not good enough. So I remember, in my athletic career, it was, you're either training really hard or you're trying to sleep. And when I and this also applies to business, is I started getting into rejuvenating activities. Oh, there's I can going for a walk isn't going to take away from my weightlifting. Going and getting on the Airdyne, the assault bike, for half an hour, even though it's not directly support, doesn't seem like it's directly supporting us doing that. Going and dancing and having a good time with my friends, without too much alcohol. These are all rejuvenating activities that uh, that are commonly overlooked in regard to recovery. Most people think recovery and they think rest, they think about sleep, they think about sitting on the couch watching a movie. No, it's rejuvenation. And Paul Chek actually has a really good take on this. He has the four doctors, but and I won't go over all of them right now. But two of the doctors, you have working in and working out. So working out is when you're expending your life force. So you're using your life force and you're giving it in order to get a result. But working in is actually when you're in some type of movement practice where you're actually pulling the energy in. And so if you study any qigong is all about moving energy and building energy. I'm building energy in the system by moving. And there's certain ways of breathing and moving that are actually building energy in the body. And that was something that was really foreign to me, but now I do it every single morning. And I I can tell a huge difference. You know, doing qigong is building energy. It's a rejuvenating activity. It looks like exercise and it looks like boring exercise. You know, it can look like these things, but when you really start getting in and harnessing energy and learning how to build it in your system and then move the energy in your system, it's really, really powerful.
Motion is lotion, baby. Motion is lotion. and, and,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
that's
I've never
that's the
heard that one.
oh well, you can take it because it's not mine to give, but it's it's the it's the counterintuitive idea that slowing down speeds you up. And I fought this mindset for so long. I fought this for years until the point where life forces you to slow down. My wife used to even say it. She's like, you don't sit down until your body makes you sit down. And that's not a good place to be because just like you mentioned, not being able to squat for a month, when burnout hit, I wasn't able to work in my business for weeks. Think of the revenue that gets lost there, right? And you're so focused on the problem and attacking the next metric, the next KPI, that you end up missing the next five because you overextended to get this one. So slowing down to speed up, motion is lotion. The rejuvenation, I love the rejuvenation because the live music, dancing, having a few drinks with friends, just enjoying a nice cool evening by the fire pit. We used to pass back in the day. It used to be past the laptop. Now we could just pass the phone and the Bluetooth speaker. But we used to each pick a song. And after at the end of the night, we'd sit by the fire, we'd play a song, and we'd talk about what the song meant to us. And each person would have their turn. Like those are the times where I remember my cup getting full, right? Or my good friend
Mm-hmm.
Charles, rest his
Mm-hmm.
soul, he talked about the ATM concept, right? He says when he wakes up in the morning and that phone rings, everybody's making a withdrawal. Everybody's making a withdrawal. But there are some people in your life and there's some activities that make a deposit. There's some activities that fill you up instead of drain you. And when you can navigate those effectively, you can keep the balance high enough to handle the withdrawals because the withdrawals are always going to come, whether it's life, whether it's the business, whether it's relationships, they're always going to come. But having the practice, having the motion that gives you the deposits, keeps your balance nice and full so you can continue to give out into others, man.
Yeah, I like that. And regarding the development of consciousness, and so developing like how it is that we relate to ourselves and the world, there's a concept called spiral dynamics. There's a theory of development of human consciousness. And Ken Wilber is somebody who's highlighted a lot. The Claire Graves was the original guy who laid the foundation for spiral dynamics to be presented. And when you and there's a whole graph, you can go look it up and it'll basically map out where you're at. And so the when at a first glance it can seem like that once you advance to a certain level of consciousness that you would never go back, right? There's this idea that you would never slide back. But inside of that concept, there's a lot of evidence that shows that you can actually move from one stage of development to another stage of development really fast. And which basically means you skip some steps. So we've seen this. I've seen this a lot in the entrepreneurial community where people are get interested in personal development, and they go, oh, my business can only develop as far as I develop as a human being. And so then they start trying to move to the next stage of development, but they haven't developed all the little micro skills that are in the stage they're currently in. They haven't mastered the stage they're in, and they're trying to get to the next stage. And so what they do is they start moving their consciousness into this next stage prematurely. And what ends up happening is something will happen that challenges that requires the skill that was needed from the previous stage. So if you want to be an integrated person, if you want to integrate your consciousness, then you have to be able to pull on and go back to previous stages of development and the skills that were developed there in order to be the foundation for where you're at right now. And so what ends up happening is people skip steps and they get into this new stage of development, and then they have to go back to this to the other stage and develop these skills, which can feel really annoying. You know, it's happened for me where I'm like, dude, that feels like something I should already know, but I didn't do it. And it's very humbling to need to go back and do that. And so one of the things that I make sure to do now is I was in a conversation with ChatGPT over the weekend about stages of development, and I was going back and forth and developing some of my own theories on some things, and which I'll be actually dropping in it's in the free school that we have. I'll be
Nice.
doing a little course on this, um, but the the really identifying, like, it's really important to know where you are and know which practices are suitable and appropriate for where you are now so that you can completely solidify where you are. And so when I look at where I'm at, and I've done a lot of analysis of like, okay, I'm between stages like 4 and 5, as an example.
Mhm.
Depending on which psychologist you're talking to, they have like colors, or they have like, you know, they don't want to make it seem like there's a hierarchy, and so they might use colors instead of numbers. But let's just say I'm between 4 and 5. It's like, oh well, what do I need to stabilize in level 4 before I'm already trying to go into level 5? Okay, these are the practices, these are the types of journaling I need to do before. This is the type of breath work that's appropriate. What's what the breath work and the type of meditation and the type of things that I'm doing at between stages 4 and 5 are different than between 2 and 3. If someone was doing what I'm doing between 4 and 5 and they haven't gone solidified 2 or 3 yet, then they're actually going to slow themselves down because they're trying to go
Mhm.
fast. And
Mhm.
so it's like, no, there's actually a more appropriate thing for you to be doing right now, and exploring with yourself right now. And after that's solidified, then the next evolution of your consciousness is going to be really obvious and easy to step into. It's not going to
Yeah.
feel like, it shouldn't be effortful.
That makes so much sense because it's almost like trying to put in the cheat code to skip the level in the game. Or the most dangerous character in Mario is the first little Goomba, because it's the first lesson it teaches you in the game is how to jump. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
learn how to jump.
Yeah.
Now that Goomba comes, it's the most players out of all the characters in Mario. That one little Goomba has the most players because the first thing you need to do is learn how to jump. But if you don't know how to jump, you don't make it to Bowser, you don't save the princess, and you definitely don't dodge the fireballs. And that's what each level of the game teaches you. And for the folks who haven't played that game in the longest time, guess what? You won't get eaten by the Goomba because you know how to jump. And that's the beautiful thing about life is when you finally master the level and you have the proper tools for that level, the skill set can never be taken from you. And I think this comes full circle to the research studies, right? Going back to the first one with the chemical compounds that can reverse aging. If you're not attentive to your level, if you're using supplementation or peptides as shortcuts, they're going to have diminishing returns, right? And that second study of heart rate variability, doing the practice of rest, because we said before recording, I can get my heart rate to 190. That's not a problem. I can spike it. I can go for sprints. I could do that. But I can only bring my baseline so low. And working on the breath work, working on those rejuvenating practice helps bring the baseline lower so my heart rate variability goes up. I don't have a problem with spiking. I have a problem with regulating, as most of us do. And then that last piece, that last study is the recovery, allowing ourselves to recover So then we are more effective in our business, in the decision making, and how we attack life. And when that chemical compound hits the market, we could live to 170 and wipe our ass, Mike.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I love it. It's the Full Stack Podcast, guys. Go out there, live a full stack life.